Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that Alejandro Garnacho's time at Manchester United is over. United are in pole position for Viktor Gyökeres. All the latest regarding Mbeumo, Rasmus Hojlund, exit latest, Rashford prepared to take a pay cut, and some missed transfer targets that I'm going to run through with you. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with the breaking news. I've literally just recorded a video and then Romano came out with the Garnacho update. So here we go again regarding that. So Fabrizio Romano has come out literally at the time of recording this video saying that Alejandro Garnacho will leave Manchester United this summer. His time at Old Trafford is over. Alejandro Garnacho and Manchester United are over. The decision has been made, not only Amorim, but from the management as well, which is really interesting. And Premier League clubs are pushing and calling for Alejandro Garnacho. There is a strong possibility of him playing in the league with a different shirt. Bayern Leverkusen are interested in him, but will not be easy financially. Italian clubs are also interested as well. So Fabrizio Romano confirming the kind of stories that we've already kind of heard around Ruben Amorim effectively telling him to go and find a new club that was brought out after the Europa League kind of final, but now kind of confirmed from Fabrizio Romano himself that Alejandro Garnacho will leave Manchester United this summer. His time at Old Trafford is over. So that's the confirmation from the man himself, Romano, confirming that Alejandro Garnacho will be sold this summer. I think it's just a case now from our perspective as getting the best value for money that we can. The worry that I have regarding this situation is, one, he's a great prospect. I don't like what's happened regarding Alejandro Garnacho. I don't necessarily think, though, the club have got an option with everything that's kind of happened, behind the scenes and the comments and things like that as well. It's one of these where we're just going to have to take the L on it in the future if he goes on to have the kind of career that his potential kind of suggests that he might do, but it is what it is. Regarding this situation, I just don't like how it's been played out kind of in public, because I do think it's devalued Garnacho. And we've already there was a report when Chelsea might be going for Jamie Gittins and they were linked with Alejandro Garnacho, but apparently they've been put off by question marks around his attitude. That was a report that I read the other day as well. So, it does kind of devalue Garnacho. I think it's just a case now of getting the best value for money that we can and the highest kind of bid. I don't feel comfortable, though, with seeing him playing for another Premier League club. I've got to be completely truthful with you. I was cool with the idea of him going to Napoli or maybe even Bayern Leverkusen, because I don't have to have it rubbed in my nose every week if he kind of performs and develops the way that his talent potentially suggests that he might do. It's just going to be rubbed in our noses, isn't it, if he goes to another Premier League club, but it is what it is. I don't know what the kind of right or wrong move is, because if he's got attitude problems and off-field problems as well and things going on behind the scenes, you've got to remove that from the club. You have to. That's where we've been going wrong, because we've been controlled by player power too much in the past, and we have to start again. It's about the culture at United. That's what Amorim's trying to reset, and part of resetting that culture is getting rid of the bad eggs and getting rid of the bad apples that do not have the right attitude. And so it is what it is. That's what's believed to be happening anyway with Garnacho, but so he has played his last game in the pre-season, because he looked really happy about having to kind of do that, didn't they? But then so did all the players, really, in that post-season kind of tour that we did, those couple of games as well. But yeah, not going to see Garnacho again. So I just hope we can get good value for money for him and then invest that money properly back into the first team as well, which leads me nicely on to the rest of the transfer news. But firstly, I would absolutely love your shouts in the comments below on the Alejandro Garnacho situation. Get involved. Let me know what you think. It'd be really interesting to read what you think about this situation in the comments below. So let's go on to some incoming news. So the latest player, unless you've been living under a rock, we're in negotiations at the moment about potentially signing Bryan Mbeumo, who coincidentally would probably be a Garnacho replacement, but then Cunha could also be, the replacement for Garnacho as well. So what's all the latest kind of going on regarding his situation? So Manchester United's second bid has now been submitted for Bryan Mbeumo and is over £60 million. That came from Ben Jacobs. However, Nave Salt dismissed that, saying that no second bid has yet been made by United for Bryan Mbeumo. United working on their second offer, eager to see next bid accepted to accelerate and seal move. Rudy Galletti has said that Brentford have informed Man United they're open to accepting the new proposal worth just over £60 million, so £50 million plus bonuses. Talks on bonuses and payment terms are ongoing, but are considered marginal. Personal terms are also being finalised. Expect at £8.5 million a year as well, which works out roughly £170,000 per week. I've heard £175,000, which is lower than the £200,000 that was reported yesterday, and definitely lower than the £250,000 that's been kind of doing the rounds over the last few days as well. But again, that came from a source close to Newcastle, who I think are a little bit butthurt because we've managed to get Mbeumo, who was seen as one of their priority targets, without Champions League football. That's where I think all those kind of rumours surfaced from. Fabrizio Romano said that Bryan Mbeumo rejected Newcastle, Arsenal and more clubs as he wants to wear the Manchester United shirt and play at Old Trafford. Both clubs are back in talks today, working to get the deal done, and Mbeumo has an agreement with United. So Romano kind of confirming that Mbeumo did actually reject those clubs and decided to come to Manchester United, which I kind of rate. And obviously he'd be rewarded for that in terms of his contract and stuff. But I don't think they're going to go silly with the wages for players. Any player coming to United, though, is going to be rewarded because we're a big club and we do pay big money. It's just not the kind of silly, the free £400,000 a week kind of salaries that we've given out in the past. Though I think those days are long gone, and rightly so as well, because those are the players that cause us the most problems. The ones that seem to be on the highest wages, like Alexis Sanchez, for example. And then Fabrizio Romano also said that Manchester United's next official bid could get closer to what Brentford wants for Mbeumo. Let's see, around £60 to £65 million could be enough to convince Brentford. And also that Bryan Mbeumo was clear with Brentford, he wants only Manchester United. I like it when you hear those sort of stories. It makes you kind of like the players even more. Matheus Cunha was exactly the same as well, rejected other deals, and the rhetoric there and the kind of reports where he only wants to come to United as well. And I like that in players because, hopefully we can see the rewards of that in the pitch, where they're here for the right reasons. They're here because they want to ultimately play for United. But yes, they are going to be rewarded financially for that. But, it's not seen as the kind of, they want to come because it's United, which I kind of rate. Nave Salt, though, and said that one thing that has become very clear in discussions about Mbeumo is that United does not want to get stuck in a cycle of continuous bidding. The club is determined not to be taken advantage of by players under the new regime. So that goes to what we were saying about the salaries and the contract situations and stuff, is we're not going to go do excessive kind of salaries. They're going to be rewarded, but also we don't want to get stuck in this cycle of continuous bidding. So it's believed the reports are that United just want to get this deal done and iron out any of the kind of creases and dot the I's and cross the T's and stuff, so that when the next bid goes in, it's accepted by Brentford. And that's where I think we're currently at with the negotiations. Sky was saying that Manchester United are impressed with Bryan Mbeumo's strong desire to join the club, which I kind of rate as well. And the Matthias were saying that Brentford wants Cunha money and both clubs are working towards a deal. And Mbeumo wants United, and Brentford knows that all parties want the deal to happen. And Manchester United are closing in on second major signing of the summer, with talks ongoing over Bryan Mbeumo, with sources saying talks are heading towards a positive conclusion. So that came from Graham Bailey. Graham Bailey is saying that they potentially want to get a deal done this week. And it does feel like this deal is kind of creeping towards the kind of finish line. Nico was saying that Bryan Mbeumo is one step away from Manchester United, one step away to Manchester United from Brentford, contract till 2030 with the option for 2031. Man United are confident to finalise the deal in the next days. And Rudy Galletti's just come out recently and said that constant contacts between Man United and Brentford for Mbeumo focused on bonus and payment terms as told. Brentford confirmed openness to accepting the bid and won't stand in Bryan's way, but are also pushing to fine-tune details in their favour, aware he is a key target. Bryan Mbeumo is one step away from Manchester United, to Manchester United from Brentford, contract till 2030 with the option for 2031. So two kind of sources there saying it's going to be 2030 with the option of a 2031. Mbeumo wants decay, but also it's just a case of finance. So I don't think it's going to be long before We get the here we go regarding Mbeumo. We're in negotiations. It's just a case of finalising, the upfront cost. Is it going to be 50, 55 million pounds with some add-ons? Would it be 60 with some add-ons? What would those add-ons look like? Are they going to be easy achievable ones, not so easy achievable ones as well? And it's just a case of working out all of that kind of jazz. And then that's believed then United put their next kind of official bid in. What an official bid looks like when you're in those sort of negotiations, I still have no idea. Someone let me know what you think in the comments. But and then it's believed that this deal will get done over the line as well. But that's all the latest regarding Bryan Mbeumo. It's updates, but not real updates, in my opinion. It's just we're negotiating, but it's getting closer. That's the way I would kind of summarize the news regarding Mbeumo. And I don't think it's going to be long before we get the here we go by all accounts. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. On Bryan Mbeumo, getting there. I think it's still positive. It's just like I said, a case of working out the kind of finer details of the payment structure in the deal. Now, another player that we're heavily linked with is Viktor Gyökeres. The noise is not going anywhere. So what's the latest there? So United will be in the market for a number 9 after the signing of Cunha and the potential arrival of Mbeumo. Gyökeres is one of the strikers United are looking at, and Amorim is a big admirer, having worked with him before. That came from Sky Sports, pretty much stating the obvious, though. We've been aware that we want a number 9, and we're aware that Gyökeres, is admired by Amorim. Because of their relationship. God, it's absolutely bashing down. Apologies if you can hear the rain in the background. It is absolutely splashing down outside. And then this was interesting, though, about Viktor Gyökeres. So Viktor Gyökeres fancies a move to Arsenal if he gets the pick of his clubs this summer. Arsenal are one of a number of top clubs targeting the forward, with Manchester United among others looking at the 27-year-old. Sporting believe that Gyökeres prefers Arsenal and the Premier League over interest from Spain and Italy. Arsenal can also offer Champions League football, which is something that United cannot boast for any potential transfer targets this summer. Now, that came from John Cross in the Mirror, who's actually a fairly decent source of information, more towards like Arsenal as well, suggesting that, and that's kind of worrying, because the worry I've got with Gyökeres is what happens between if a club with Champions League football go in for him, i.e. if Arsenal go in for him and he's got a choice between us and Arsenal, what would his kind of preference be there? Would that change his mind? Would he prefer Champions League? Would he not? The reports are that it's not the be-all or end-all, but we'll go through that in a second. And that's one of my worries, is if we're competing with 2 clubs, Champions League, non-Champions League, what would Gyökeres' kind of decision be there? But according to Romano, Arsenal's priority target is Sesko as of today. Viktor Gyökeres' situation is not developing. So, the reports have always been that Arsenal are potentially going for Gyökeres and Sesko. They are in advanced negotiations at the moment, according to Romano, for Benjamin Sesko. So again, doesn't that leave the door open for potentially us having like a pretty much of a free run of Viktor Gyökeres? PSG are still linked with him, though, which does kind of concern me. And I'm sure there's interest from other clubs potentially in him as well. But again, all roads seem to be pointing towards United potentially having an opportunity, I would say anyway, to go for Viktor Gyökeres. Ben Jacobs has said that Viktor Gyökeres remains open to Manchester United even without Champions League football, as revealed yesterday, even though United haven't yet made an approach to Sporting to date. So Ben Jacobs doubling down on the story that I brought to you yesterday, if you watched that video, where he was saying that Gyökeres would come to United basically without Champions League football. But again, my worry is what happens if he's got 2 options, one with Champions League, one with not Champions League. That's where I would have the kind of concern regarding Gyökeres. But the Muppeteers were saying that Manchester United are very interested in Viktor Gyökeres, and there's a big chance we move for him. We might need sales before moving to for him or any other striker. It depends on how much we pay for Bryan Mbeumo up front. So what the Muppeteers was effectively saying, and I think is a good source, especially around United finances as well, effectively saying that if we say we paid 50 million up front for Mbeumo and then 10 million in add-ons or 12 million add-ons, whatever it kind of works out, we still then might have the money to be able to go for Viktor Gyökeres. But otherwise, it's going to be dependent on player sales, i.e. Alejandro Garnacho. We've just broken, obviously, the story regarding him, and he's going to be definitely gone this summer if we didn't know that already. So that'll be one to kind of keep an eye on. But interestingly, though, we might get some money from Alvaro Carreras with his move to Real Madrid. Also, Newcastle might be in for Anthony Elanga. We've got a sell-on clause in his contract as well. So that might give us a little bit more to potentially be able to go for a Gyokeres without the kind of player sales. It's just a case of working it out, though. It's believed the main kind of reports are that we might need to sell in order to get Gyokeres once we get the Mbeumo deal kind of done, but we'll have to wait and see how that kind of goes. But Romano was kind of confirming what Ben Jacobs was saying as well, which is really interesting. So Viktor Gyökeres was keen to move to United before the Europa League final, before they didn't qualify. However, he is still open to assessing all options, and it's not Champions League or nothing. United will have the chance to sign him depending on sale. So that's really kind of key, where he's saying exactly what Ben Jacobs broke. So credit to Ben Jacobs, been quite accurate recently regarding his kind of transfer information or inside information, however he's getting his kind of sources from, suggesting that, but Romano confirming it as well, saying that actually Champions League football is not going to be the deciding factor for Viktor Gyökeres, and he would be keen on a move to United, where he was definitely keen on a move before Champions League. You know, it's one of these, like, I want to get excited about the Gyökeres news, but I'm still reserving it because it feels too good to be true, or it sounds too good to be true. For United to go and get, Cunha and Mbeumo and Viktor Gyökeres just doesn't feel like a Man United move, because we've been so incompetent at transfers in the past, and these transfers make sense stylistically, when you look at the kind of profile of player for the system that we're looking for as well. Also, Premier League proven, good ages, good kind of they make sense, and that's what United don't normally do. We don't normally do transfers that make sense. So I'm reserving a bit of judgment, but obviously this is a new regime with with Ineos coming in and Barada, Wilcox and Christopher Vivell, and obviously they are wanting to back Ruben Amorim, so fair play for that. But this is one with Gyökeres. I want to see him in a shirt first before I'll actually believe that we were confident enough to go out and do this deal. Caught offside, however, they were saying that Manchester United are now in pole position to sign Viktor Gyökeres. £60 million could get the deal done, and United have made the funds available as Arsenal focus on Benjamin Sesko. So again, Arsenal going for Sesko. It's believed that Arsenal were in for one of the teams in for Gyökeres, so that's them out of the equation. You're going to have to let me know what you think about it in the comments. Like I said, it's looking plausible is the way I would kind of say it at the moment. It's just depending on, there's still a lot of question marks. This is not a deal that's going to be done tomorrow or anything like that as well. But, if we can get the funds in, if we can get a quick sale on Garnacho, for example, I'd be really interested to see how this kind of develops, whether we do then just go all in, get Gyökeres done, and then worry about getting the other positions, because you've got to remember with Garnacho, it's homegrown profit. That is massive from a financial perspective for United, not for PSR. PSR we're fine with. We need cash to spend, so we need money into the club in order to spend money. We're fine to be able to spend money, as I brought you yesterday's video from the report in The Athletic. We can lose 141 million pounds and be fine with PSR. It's just we don't have the money to spend. In order to get the money to spend, we need to sell players or increase our income, or reduce our outgoings, i.e. get rid of the Glazers' debt and get them gone, or the redundancies. All of these things are helping towards kind of getting us on a more stable footing financially. But one of the best ways is to sell players, and obviously Garnacho, pure profit, a massive injection of cash into the club, which then can be used to go and potentially fund the rest of our transfer window this summer. I think with the Garnacho money, if we can get a good deal. But that's plausible. Garnacho out, Gyökeres in, and Mbeumo in, Cunha in. All looking likely, but give us your thoughts on it in the comments. Be interesting to hear what you've got to say regarding it. Now, what happens if we don't get Viktor Gyökeres? Because the striker kind of list of targets is kind of diminishing, unfortunately. So Liam Delap's gone to Chelsea. Apparently Chelsea want Ekitike as well, so that could be one we miss out on. Benjamin Sesko is another name we've been linked with. Arsenal in advanced negotiations with him. Victor Osimhen, surprisingly, now might be going back to Al Hilal, to the Saudi Pro League, after going through the news yesterday where he'd rejected the bid. Apparently that move might be back on, so that's one off the list as well. If we don't get Gyökeres and can't get the money for him, like the list of striker targets is kind of, dwindling down, which is why I kind of think, well, actually, if we're sitting on our hands and not making move for strikers when we know it's a priority position, is there something in the Gyökeres kind of deal? But Alternatives, one might be Mateta, and again, even he might not be a target. So Jean-Philippe Mateta is in talks about extending his Crystal Palace contract, but clubs such as Manchester United and Juventus are also interested in signing him this summer. He's expected to be valued at around £35 million. So Sky Cabe saying that, you know, Mateta, I think he's entering into the last year of his contract, which is why his value would be so low. But he potentially is in contract negotiations with Crystal Palace, obviously having just got them into the Europa League. Is he going to want to stay there and play a season of Europa League for Crystal Palace, a team that he helped get into the Europa League in the first place? So could we be in a position where actually we can't sign a player from Crystal Palace because they're in the Europa League and we're not? Oh my God, could it get any worse? Probably. But you know, it's one of these as well. I mean, price-wise, I like the idea of going for Mateta. If you can't get Gyökeres would be, you know, my kind of preferred target. But if you can't get him, I like the idea of Mateta, Cunha, and Mbeumo up front as well. 3 Premier League proven players, the physicality, you know, that the increase in physicality in the team and stuff as well would literally be night and day from what we've been used to. But according to Sky, he might potentially be looking to stay at Crystal Palace. So again, that's another one that kind of could be off the potential list as well. And another player, this might kind of interest some of you because I know you're in the comments from previous videos as well regarding Jonathan David might be another shout. Corriere dello Sport, though, was saying that Jonathan David has Manchester United, Barcelona or PSG as his priorities. His preference is to make a switch to the Premier League. Unfortunately, Manchester United haven't made any advances to sign him, even though he's available on a free transfer. So Jonathan David, according to Corriere dello Sport, who are a decent Italian source, not the best though, not the most credible, suggesting that Jonathan David would wants to come to the Premier League and that he would want to come to United, Barcelona or PSG. Obviously, if he prefers Premier League, it will be United to come through, but we've not yet made any advances to sign him. Now, while Jonathan David is a free agent, technically not a free transfer because you're going to have to pay him a signing on fee and probably an agent fee as well and maybe higher salary in order to kind of get him. There is reports that he might be going to Napoli, so I don't know whether this is an agent story that's come out in order to get Napoli to pay more wages or higher kind of agent fees. That's potentially, that can't be ruled out as well. Might be one of those kind of stories. But apparently, according to that story, United haven't made any advances for Jonathan David. I think Jonathan David, for me, I would go for it as a backup kind of striker if you were to maybe sell Xerxes and Hojlund, and then you get, you know, Mateta or Gyokeres or whoever your kind of striker preference is, and then Jonathan David as a backup. But it's still not going to be cheap, even though it's a free transfer. If you remember back to last summer, we were heavily linked with Adrien Rabiot, and I think we worked it all out with his salary and everything like that as well. It's going to be like a £30 million deal around that. I think it was around 20 to 30 million pounds, if memory serves me right, just to get for Adrien Rabiot, and he was a free transfer as well, so it's not technically free. It's still a big outlay for a player. But give us your thoughts on Jonathan David in the comments. Now, where does that leave, you know, Rasmus Hojlund? Obviously, striker is going to be the next priority. Loads of talk still regarding a move potentially to Inter Milan. So let's go for the latest there. So Nico's good source, been very credible recently, saying that Inter are interested in Rasmus Hojlund. Open talks with United for a loan with an option to buy. United would prefer a sale or a permanent deal. The Danish is no longer in Amorim's plan. So that's kind of linking with the stories and the reports that have been going on the last few days as well regarding Hojlund, that apparently he's not in the plans and that Inter are interested in him as well. Talk, though, of a loan with an option to buy. From there, James Ducker in the Telegraph is a good source that it could take around 45 to 50 million euros to persuade Manchester United to part with Rasmus Hojlund. The club and the player are aware of Inter's interest. Inter would prefer a loan initially with an option or an obligation to buy. So again, similar kind of story regarding Inter's interest and potentially, you know, going to be a lot of outlay to sell, but maybe they're looking at a loan with an option or an obligation to buy. Sky was saying that Manchester United are not pushing Rasmus Hojlund out and will only consider offers if he expresses a desire for a new challenge. Chiva will soon be appointed as Inter coach and will influence any pursuit of Hojlund. That sounded to me like it was maybe United kind of putting a story out saying, hold on, we're not pushing him out the door because we want to maintain his value. Like the Garnacho situation, we've made it public that actually he's been told to basically jog on and find a new club, which has decreased his value, in my opinion. And we don't want the same to happen with Hojlund, as if his value could be decreased any further with his recent performances. But we do still want to try and get money for him. So I think that's maybe one United put out there saying, no, actually, no, we're not pushing him out, but if he wants to go, then he can kind of go, just to try and maintain at least some kind of value for money for Rasmus Hojlund. The Gazette was saying that Hojlund is given the approval over a move to Inter Milan. So, but then interesting, Fabrizio Romano has kind of confirmed that Inter links are genuine. So Inter are definitely interested in Rasmus Hojlund. Let's see now if clubs can find an agreement, but it's up to Inter. And Simon Jones from the Mail has said that Inter Milan have made further contact with Manchester United about a permanent move for Rasmus Hojlund. Manchester United want a new striker this summer and will listen to suitable offers for Rasmus Hojlund. So the connections between or the links with Inter and Rasmus Hojlund, according to Romano, genuine. It might be that we're working on it potentially or putting out a deal where permanent option to buy, obligation to buy, and doing all of that stuff as well. But we need to kind of keep an eye on that one. But all roads, no smoke without fire. It does seem like there is interest from Inter in Rasmus Hojlund. Whether we can get a deal done, who knows? We'll have to kind of keep an eye on that one. Now, another player that would give us a bit of a boost to our kind of income and everything is Marcus Rashford. So this came out from the Manchester Evening News, saying that Spanish publication Marca claimed that Marcus Rashford could take a considerable pay cut to accommodate Barcelona's financial situation. It said that United are willing to wait for Barca until the end of the summer transfer window. The Manchester Evening News understands that Rashford is unlikely to play for the Reds again under Ruben Amorim. So another player that's effectively, been told, well, we knew that anyway with Rashford. It's unlikely he's going to come back into the fold. But interesting that Marco was saying that Rashford is prepared to take a considerable pay cut to move to Barcelona, but also the Manchester Evening News saying that United are willing to wait for Barcelona until the end of the summer transfer window as well to try and get that deal done, just to get Marcus off the kind of books and obviously get his wages gone as well. So we're happy to wait. So this might be a transfer that drags on and on and on and gets done like last minute, because Barcelona are an absolute mess, as they normally are financially, and they need to work out a lever to pull or a kidney to sell or however they're going to get around their kind of financial situation in order to get the money for Marcus Rashford. Apparently Rashford is happy to take a pay cut to go to Barcelona, and that Barcelona would be prepared to wait for Barcelona if it facilitates the move for Marcus Rashford, which I suppose is fair enough. And interestingly, I was thinking about this before, it is World Cup year as well, and that I think would work in our favour to try and remove players this summer as well, if the players have got aspirations of playing international football. And Marcus Rashford, regardless of what you think about him and stuff and what's come out and been said, he does want to play for England. That's why he went to Aston Villa on loan, because he wanted to get back in the England first team as well. And he will not want to be sat around not playing football for next season, because he's never going to get picked from Thomas Tuchel as well. So that is actually going to force maybe some players out, especially if we've got no Europe. We can't offer them game times. There's no pathway back for Rashford anyway, but that might be in favour for some other players in the squad as well that maybe we would want to remove, i.e. Luke Shaw, for example. If he wants to play for England again, he's going to have to be playing football. But if we can kind of say, well, actually, you're not going to be playing because we've got Aiden Heaven, Martinez is going to be back. We've got Diego Leon coming in, Harry Amas, Patrick Dorgu. I mean, where's his kind of pathway to the first team if we're not playing in Europe? So you might actually kind of, and then it's down to the player to what their kind of personal aspirations are. And if they want to play international football and play in the World Cup in the States next year, then maybe it will force them to kind of have to look at their pay and take a pay cut to go to other clubs. Casemiro might be another one as well, even though he's only got a year left on his contract. If we buy a midfielder, or if we bring someone in and say, look, actually, we're not going to be playing you, so you're just going to be, getting the odd substitute minutes here and there, is that going to be enough for Carlo Ancelotti to pick him for the World Cup as well? So it might actually work in our favour, that. But give us your thoughts and shouts on that in the comments. And then the final stories I've got for you is just a few targets that we missed out on. So Angel Gomez, according to Romano, is going to Marseille. We've been linked with him a lot over the last few months as well, although the recent reports have gone very quiet regarding him, but I thought I'd give you an update that he's potentially going to Marseille. Mastantuono, annoyingly, is going to be going to Real Madrid, according to Romano. It was always believed that, Mastantuono wanted to go to Real Madrid. That was his preference, but the reports were that maybe Real Madrid weren't necessarily going in for him, but now they have, and potentially he's going to be going to Real Madrid, and Ryan Cherky looks like he's going to Man City. So there's three names that we were linked with in the past, not coming to United, all decent players as well. So it's a case of you win some, you lose some, isn't it, as well? As long as we get our deals right, you are going to miss out on players in the transfer market because, other teams need to strengthen as well. And there's, only a certain pool of players that have the quality to go to these sort of clubs as well. But I'm personally gutted about Mastantuono. I thought he would have been a really, really promising player to kind of bring in. But is what it is. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.